This video is for spiritual seekers who admire Buddhist philosophy but feel conflicted about its supernatural elements. It speaks to rational minds craving truth without blind belief. If you're drawn to inner peace but struggle with myth, this video will resonate. And if this message is already resonating with you, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're building a space for deep thinkers, spiritual seekers, and anyone who's ever questioned their path, and you belong here. At first, Buddhism felt like everything I had been searching for. I wasn't looking for a religion, I was looking for clarity. I found it in the Four Noble Truths, in the concept of detachment, in the gentle but radical idea that suffering is not something to escape, but something to understand. The way Buddhism approached the mind and the ego didn't feel mystical. It felt like science, like psychology. It spoke to parts of me that had long felt ignored by other traditions, the parts that didn't want blind belief, but actual tools to live better. Reading the Buddha's words about craving, impermanence, and consciousness felt like stepping into a deep, calm river of truth. I was finally learning how to suffer less, not because someone promised me heaven, but because it made sense. The teachings weren't asking me to worship, just to observe, to be present. And I loved that. I felt empowered, awake, like I was finally peeling back the layers of life and seeing things as they truly are. But then I turned the page. And what I found next shook that clarity in ways I wasn't prepared for. Everything changed the moment I stumbled onto a different side of the Buddhist texts. I was reading about Buddha's teachings on suffering and awareness, and then, suddenly, there it was. Descriptions of the Buddha flying through the air, teleporting across miles, remembering not just one, but countless past lives, each with vivid detail. At first, I thought it was symbolic, but the text wasn't written like a metaphor. It was written like historical fact. And I felt something shift in me. That grounded sense of clarity I had started to feel shaky. Was I now expected to believe that enlightenment gives you superpowers? That you can suddenly know your cosmic history like reading a diary? I couldn't help but draw comparisons. How is this different from biblical miracles? Angels descending from heaven? Parting the seas? Suddenly, Buddhism started to feel less like a path of self-awareness and more like another mythological system wrapped in poetry. And I'll be honest, it disappointed me. I wanted to believe, but in what, exactly? Did I just discover the limits of my faith, or the beginning of a deeper test? When I started questioning what I read, I didn't keep it to myself. I went looking for answers, on Reddit, forums, even YouTube comments. I needed to know, am I the only one struggling with this? What I found surprised me. Some people fully believe the Buddha developed psychic powers, levitation, omniscient memory, divine perception. To them, these were not metaphors but spiritual skills unlocked through deep meditation and karmic purity. Others said the supernatural parts are cultural artifacts, mythical embellishments added centuries later, much like legends surrounding saints or prophets. A few Buddhists, especially Western practitioners, were refreshingly honest. They said, you don't have to believe in all of it to benefit from the core teachings. That was comforting, but also confusing. Who decides what's essential and what's not? Am I allowed to carve out a version of Buddhism that fits my worldview? Or does that make me a fraud? One user said something that stuck with me, you're not rejecting Buddhism, you're engaging with it. That's part of the path. And maybe they're right. Maybe questioning isn't a sign of spiritual failure, but a sign of inner honesty. Still, I wasn't sure what to do with the conflict stirring inside me. I used to think belief had to be all or nothing. You either accept it fully, or walk away. But the more I sat with my doubts, the more I realized, maybe faith isn't a switch. Maybe it's a spectrum. I began comparing this to other spiritual traditions. There are Christians who love Jesus' message of compassion, yet quietly don't believe in virgin births or walking on water. There are Jews who honor tradition without taking every verse as historical fact. Why couldn't Buddhism offer the same kind of space? I didn't need the Buddha to fly, I just needed his teachings to ground me. The message about suffering, ego, craving, impermanence, none of that depended on miracles. The truth I found was practical, lived, real, and still valid. Maybe the stories of supernatural powers are poetic devices, ways to express the vastness of enlightenment in a language ancient people could understand. Or maybe some people genuinely experience strange things in deep meditation. Who am I to say? But here's what I do know. I don't need to believe everything to walk the path. I can still meditate, still grow, still search. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. I haven't abandoned Buddhism, but I've definitely stopped trying to fit it into a neat, clean box. What started as a journey of discovery slowly turned into a process of deconstruction, and I think that's part of the real path. I used to crave certainty. I wanted to know exactly what I believed, what was true, what was metaphor, what was real. But the deeper I went, the more I realized that spiritual growth doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes, it comes with deeper questions. And that's where I find myself now. I still meditate. I still read the texts. I still return to the teachings that changed how I see suffering, desire, and the mind itself. But I no longer feel the need to accept everything just to belong. I can value what resonates and set aside what doesn't, for now. Maybe one day I'll understand more. Maybe I won't. But the beauty is, Buddhism doesn't demand blind belief. It invites conscious engagement. I've come to realize that doubt is not the opposite of faith. It's the refining fire of faith. It burns away the surface-level ideas, the inherited beliefs, the borrowed certainty. And what's left? A quieter, deeper relationship with the unknown. One that doesn't try to control truth, but to listen to it. I'm learning that walking the path doesn't require you to believe in miracles. It only asks you to look honestly at yourself and be willing to grow. Whether or not the Buddha truly flew through the air doesn't change how his teachings have grounded me. Whether or not past lives are real doesn't take away the wisdom I've gained in this one. There's something sacred in that. So where am I now? I'm still here. Still meditating. Still doubting. Still learning. And still feeling deeply drawn to something bigger than myself. If you're like me, caught between belief and skepticism, maybe you don't need to choose one side. Maybe this tension is the way forward. A path not of certainty, but of sincere seeking. And if that's where you are too, then I want you to know, you're not alone. Let's keep walking. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where your spiritual journey brought more questions than answers? Maybe a belief was shaken, or a practice changed your daily life in ways you didn't expect. Share your story in the comments. This space is for honest seekers, and your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to read today.